Hello everybody. This is a quick video going over MTSS and RTI, what they are, what good they do, and how to apply it into your classroom. So, what is MTSS? MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports, and it's a comprehensive umbrella term that covers a range of tiered support systems such as RTI, which we will get into in just a second. But umbrella term means that it covers all sorts of tiered systems, which we will also go into, that help students academically, social, emotionally, or behaviorally. They're all under the MTSS umbrella. This is the MTSS model, courtesy of TEA Learn. As you can see, it's 3 stages, and the main stage is a universal stage that applies to all students. This is a universal tier that applies to everybody in a classroom or in a school, and that shrinks down to a targeted group, which is 10 to 20% of students. 10 to 20% of students who do not um, get proper support from the universal supports that are in place will be put into tier 2. And tier 2 is targeted, it's in more of a small group, and it's extra support to help students stay afloat. And then if that does not work, we go into tier 3, which is only 1 to 5% of students, but this is intensive, one-on-one, or personalized um, teaching or support for students to help them keep up in class or control their emotions. So, what is RTI? RTI is a form of MTSS. The actual words are pretty interchangeable in terms of dialogue, but as you can see, they follow the exact same sort of tiering. The percentages are a little different, but RTI is a form of MTSS created to help students not fall behind in core subjects. It is a learning approach intended for the classroom that identifies students with learning disabilities quickly or that are just generally falling behind as quickly as possible, um, so they can, in order for them to keep up with the rest of the class. It is a replacement for the older IQ discrepancy model. RTI is a little bit newer. It came around uh, past 2000, and the IQ discrepancy model has been around for a very long time, though it is not really around anymore because too many students were just falling through the cracks, right? So most schools are moving on to an RTI system of approach um, that allows them to have a more granular control over students, um, and figure out their problems, their needs, and then address them quickly. Whereas the IQ discrepancy model, you would often have students make it all the way up to the 4th grade with a learning disability that we weren't able to catch. Using RTI and MTSS in general makes it a lot quicker, and it's a lot better for the students. So why do we care? Basically, you can look at Section 504 and IDEA. IDEA is an entitlement law ensuring eligible children with disabilities are given as early of an intervention as possible. It's free, it's appropriate, um, and it helps them stay in line with their peers and the rest of their grade. And Section 504 um, is a piece of law that prohibits discrimination on the base of disability. We want equitable learning, no matter what, regardless of the afflictions the kid may or may not have. We want it to be fair and we want it to be even, and things like IDEA Section 504 work through the RTI model to give kids the best chance of staying with the class, of having an equitable learning environment, and um, is generally more fair. As teachers and educators, we have both a legal and a moral obligation in order to keep kids educated with the best education possible, regardless of any afflictions they may or may not have. So, What is an intervention and how do we use them? Intervention means a targeted, research based instruction to support students falling behind in class. Um, Students need more than the first tier, they move on to the second tier, and these tiers become increasingly more intense and um, they're all data driven and they're all evidence based practices in order to get kids or students more prepared and more ready for the classes and help them keep up. So, academic intervention, or RTI, as we already covered, follows these three tiers. Um, the first is usually a universal screening, school uh, or classroom wide, to get every single kid plotted. And then, for those that seem to be falling behind the curve, that's where tier two can step in and be extra support for students falling behind. These are targeted small groups that have extra education, perhaps additional um, support for their reading if it's a reading class, or additional teaching in mathematics. It's targeting them to help find what they're weak at and help them get back on track and help them boost their grades up to be more in line with the rest of their peers. And tier three is personalized support. If tier two, the targeted small groups, did not work, this is when we go into personalized support. These are individual lesson plans, ideas, and supports made for a child specifically in order to give them the best shot. Um, with with how schools are now, um, it can be it can be quite difficult for a kid to keep up with the rate that schools go, and as more um, subjects are introduced to them. So, a personalized support at tier three is a very helpful tool in helping kids stay with their class and not have to result in them failing. We want all kids to succeed, right? So tier three helps us do that in the most intense way possible for kids that really, really need it. For kids that really need the support, they will end up going to tier three. For kids that have disabilities, this is very important as we went in section 504, an idea. All kids, regardless of affliction, um, need to have the same sort of support. So assistive technology is integrated into RTI to help kids along the way. And some of these ATs, as they're called, include text to speech or speech to text, braille, spelling assistance, large print, individualized structure reminders to help kids stay on track. Just little things that don't necessarily help them finish their work, but help them even the playing field, so to speak. These supports and assists will help them kind of stay in line with the rest of their class as the rest of the class goes through RTI as well, and keep everybody on an even and again that equitable playing field that we're looking for um, school wide. Um, Another form of MTSS that is related to RTI is behavioral interventions, or PBIS. Um, Again, this is a graph from TEA Learn. It goes again through a very similar looking graph, as you can see. Universal Targeted Intensive. Universal Targeted Intensive is the general name of the game here for RTI and how to implement it into your class. Universal based practices, in this case for student behavior. This can be something like universal rules in a classroom, right? No talking when the teacher's talking, turn your homework in on time, and then targeted if they're continuing to break those rules or can't seem to really get along with that program. Then we target individual students that seem to not be able to get all that they need out of tier one, and we move on to tier two, which again will have small groups. Social skills small groups are a big one, um, and we monitor the progress from there. And just like with RTI, once they improve, they go back down. If they don't improve, or if it gets worse, then they go up to the intensive, where we get diagnostics in the case of behavioral interventions, and we get pretty intense progress monitoring and evidence-based practices, um, all of which will help students kind of adapt to the learning environment and keep up with their peers in the most fair educational environment possible. So, wrapping up, MTSS includes RTI and PBIS, and more, but RTI, as we specifically covered, has become the favorite over the IQ discrepancy model and has continued to be implemented in more and more classrooms for its granular approach and its early identification of students with disabilities or students with learning disabilities in order to give them the proper help and support that they need. We have a moral and legal obligation to equitable learning, which we can do through IDEA at Section 504, and assistive technologies help us bridge those gaps in RTI where students may literally not be able to do something to keep up with the rest of the class. We can give them the assistance that they need in order to keep up. Um, Universal, targeted, intensive uh, is evidence based, it's data backed, and it's the best way to support students and make sure that everybody gets the best education possible and nobody falls through the cracks. Here are the sources that I used for this video. Thank you for watching, and that's it.